that king right there, this guy here is going to go for a short season, and he's not going to be there for a king very long. He must continue a short space. And the beast that was and is not, he's the 8th king. So now we've got an extra king in here. He's of the 7. Okay, so hang on here. So in other words, somewhere in these 6, the 5 that fell and this one that is now, one of these 6 is coming back and is going to become the last beast. That's what it's saying. Now, it's not saying that somebody's coming back from the dead. What we're learning is, what Scripture is explaining to us is, the beast from the bottomless pit is the demon spirit that indwells the person who is the king. So one of these, we'll just say one of these original 5 or 6. We've had 6, I guess. So one of these original 6, the 5 that fell, the one that is, one of them was being inhabited by this demon spirit and was being ruled with this demon spirit. They were in agreement together. The man gave himself over to rule with the demon spirit that's in the now, currently, as we sit here in the bottomless pit. At least that we know of, because we haven't seen the locust yet, right? So, but one of these 6, the guy that ruled with this was a demon spirit that was ruling with a man. So let's just say that this is the guy, figuratively. This guy is the king right here that was ruling with the demon spirit. When this guy died, or at some time before that, that demon spirit was taken and put in the bottomless pit and held until the end times when the beast man arrives. And the beast that was and is not, he is the 8th king and is of the 7. And when he rules, he's going to end up going to the lake of fire. He will go to perdition because Jesus is going to send him there. So just to reiterate, we have a demon spirit that ruled with a king. At one point, that demon spirit was captured and taken and put in the bottomless pit and sealed up. And he's staying there, waiting there. At the appropriate time, the bottomless pit is opened, that demon spirit is allowed to come out, and he then ends up inhabiting or coalescing with another king ruler who becomes the beast man, who sets his image up in the holy place and becomes the beast that we've been learning about and that we talked about last week. So that demon spirit comes out of the bottomless pit at the 5th trumpet and ends up dwelling with a man, inside of a man. So the one that was, is not, and yet is that spirit. That spirit was at one point, currently is not on the earth because it's being held in the bottomless pit, and yet will be released again so that it can come out and do damage to the earth. So let's reread these verses and we'll keep going. Verse 8, the beast that you saw was and is not and shall ascend out of the bottomless pit. It's talking about the angel. Go to perdition, and they that dwell on the earth will wonder whose names were not written in the book of life from the foundations of the world when they behold the beast that was and is not and yet is. And here's the mind that has wisdom. The 7 heads are 7 mountains on which the woman sits. There are 7 kings that are fallen, or 7 kings, 5 are fallen, 1 is, and the other is not yet come. And when he does come, he must continue a short space. And the beast that was and is not, even he's the 8th, and he's of the 7, and he goes to perdition. He gets thrown into the lake of fire. When Jesus comes back, he'll be ruling, and Jesus will take him and cast him alive into the lake of fire. The 10 horns which you saw are 10 kings, which have received no kingdom as yet, but receive power as kings 1 hour with the beast. It's a very short time frame, very short. So if you take a 360-day prophetic year, and you divide that by 24 hours to convert days into hours, right? 1 hour would represent 15 days. So basically, if that's what this means, that 1 hour is legitimately the portion of a year that an hour would encompass in a prophetic sense, they get 15 days. So for 2 weeks, basically, these kings rule with the beast man. Now, if it's during the 3.5 year period, it'd be 15 times 3.5, which would be what, 45 plus, so 52 days, right? But you get an idea. Somewhere between 15 and 50 days, give or take some change. It's a very short period. It's like a month, maybe 2 months at the most, if we're going to stretch it out. These have one mind, these kings do. They'll give their power and their strength to the beast. They'll make war with the Lamb, and the Lamb will overcome them, for he is Lord of lords and King of kings, and they that are with him are called and chosen and faithful. And he said to me, the waters which you saw where the whore sits are peoples and multitudes and nations and tongues. And the 10 horns which you saw upon the beast, these will hate the whore, the city. They will make her desolate and naked, and they will eat her flesh, and they will burn her with fire. For God has put it in the hearts of these kings to fulfill his will and to agree and to give their kingdom to the beast until the words of God will be fulfilled, and the city is judged. And the woman which you saw is that great city which reigns over the kings of the earth. Now, some people have tried to state that Vatican City is the city that we're talking about here. But I don't believe Scripture supports that for a number of reasons. Number one, it's not a port city. It's not a market city. It's not a city that makes global traders rich. And as we go into the next chapter, we're going to read about what constitutes the Whore of Babylon, what things have to be checked off to be the Whore of Babylon. So we're going to see what the city is comprised of in just a minute. Before we go there, we're going to take a break in a minute. Before we do, I want to talk about the word mountains. So chapter 17, verse 9, it says, "Here's the mind that has wisdom. The 7 heads are 7 mountains." So this is the first time that we see the word mountains referred to in the Revelation as something other than something falling out of the sky. If you remember, we saw a mountain earlier. It says I saw something flaming as a mountain that fell into the ocean, and it said that the third of the ships were destroyed, a third of the fish were destroyed. Right? Remember that? We talked about the mountain that fell as one of the trumpets, wasn't it? One of the trumpets. This is the first time, though, where we see a mountain referred to as something that has a personality to it, has something other than just an inanimate presence. Because it says here that the 7 heads are 7 mountains on which the woman sits. So I went through and I looked. There are 294 references to the word mountain or mountains in the Scripture. And if you go through and look at all 294 of those, what you're going to learn is that about 285 of them talk about a mountain. They do. They're like a big rock, right? But there are some of those references that don't. So I'm going to give you a couple. Let's look at a few real quick. So let's go to Psalm 30, verse 7. So here's one. Psalm 30, verse 7. Says, "Lord, by your favor you have made my mountain stand strong. You did hide your face, and I was troubled." So there's this point at which David is reading, or he's writing here, and he's saying, "Lord, you've made my mountain, to stand strong." And David was, if you read that whole psalm, it appears to me that David's specifically speaking about his kingship, his rule. You've made my rule to stand strong, right? My kingdom to stand strong. Jeremiah 17. Verses 1 through 4 says this. "The sin of Judah is written with a pen of iron and with the point of a diamond." In other words, it's a strong pen and it's going to etch really deep, right? "It's graven upon the table of their heart and upon the horns of your altars, while their children remember their altars and their groves by the green trees upon the high hills. O my mountain in the field, I will give your substance and all your treasures to the spoil and your high places for sin throughout your borders. And you, even yourself, I shall discontinue from the heritage that I gave you. I will cause you to serve your enemies in the land which you know not, for you have kindled the fire of my anger, which will burn forever." And Scripture started off by saying it's the sin of Judah. Judah was the mountain in that Scripture verse. So I'll give you other ones. We're not going to go through and read these, but I'm just going to give them to you if you're taking notes. So Jeremiah 51, especially verse 25. Daniel chapter 2, verses 35 through 45. Is another place, talks about a kingdom being considered a mountain. And then we have Jerusalem being called a mountain as well. So Jerusalem is called the mountain of the Lord. So Daniel 9:20, Isaiah 66:20, Daniel 11:45, and then Zechariah 8:3. Those all reference Jerusalem as being a mountain. So we have different places where political entities are called mountains. And so when we read here in the Revelation, I'm going to go back to Revelation 17. When we read here in the Revelation that says that the 7 heads are 7 mountains on which the woman sits, it appears that that could be speaking about 7 kingdoms, like earthly kingdoms that she has control over. Now, does it mean that those kingdoms have to be like a kingship? Like, for example, Prince Charles. Does it mean that this whore, this city, has control over Prince Charles? Maybe. Could it be that the whore has control over the economy of a continent? There are how many continents on the face of the earth? 7, right? We've got 7 continents. What if the mountain that she sits on is the economy of a continent? Right? We're looking at political structures, we're looking at financial structures, we're looking at things that aren't necessarily a person or a legitimate mountain, but a structure of power, right? So the word mountain references something that she has control over, and it's 7 of them, and it's a global thing. So we're going to stop at that point. I just want to draw that out to you. I'm going to put an image up on the screen so that you can look at it, and I have something here that I'm going to hand out that talks about some information that we're going to cover when we get back from our break. But let's take a 7-minute break, and then we're going to come back and we're going to talk about what makes the Whore of Babylon the Whore of Babylon. And we're going to identify a couple of possible cities in our day, today, as of today. There are a couple of cities that fit the category of the Babylon, the Whore of Babylon. We're going to talk about how she's destroyed, and interestingly, I think it's nuclear, which is kind of fascinating. So we're going to talk about nuclear bomb against the Whore of Babylon, and so let's take a 5 to 7 minute break. We'll come back, and I'll put the slide share up on the screen, and I'll hand you guys out one here in class. All right? We'll be right back. See you guys in a little bit here.